Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 886B, and today's date is February 5th, 2016, and the title of the episode is Banks Now Preparing for Emergency Scenarios. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, we see the World Health Organization and many governments, plus the CDC, they are pushing the Zika virus very, very hard. And whenever the World Health Organization, CDC, is out there and pushing something so hard, we know something is up. We see that they're continually updating their numbers, letting us know how many millions of people are going to be infected. The CDC right now is warning that Florida right now might be declared a public health emergency because this is a hot zone of where this is going to spread into the rest of the country. And they're working on their computer models right now, and they're going to come up with some type of statistical information to let us know how this is going to spread throughout the country. Now, they did this with, the swine flu, with Ebola, and here we are with the Zika virus. And we can see at this point, this is part of many different agendas, but the biggest one is for a vaccine, to scare the population, to add this into the repertoire of more and more of the vaccines that our children are going to get. And this is all to make Big Pharma more and more money, because everything that they've shown us right now, the evidence, it doesn't show us that the Zika virus, is causing the problems with the newborn children. And I went through this in the other report, and it just doesn't add up. There is something definitely wrong. And they're pushing this way too hard. Now, out in Oregon, we saw the videos, and we discussed the videos of Lavoy Finicum getting shot. And of course, the FBI showed us the incredible aerial view, blurred, not crisp and clear, no sound. And we're getting information now that everything is not what it seems. And we knew this. And we knew this was a propaganda piece to convince the world that they were in the right, which they were absolutely not. And we're starting to learn that he didn't even have a 9mm in his waist pocket or anywhere on him. We're realizing that he was shot 9 times. 9 times. And remember that part where he turned around and was holding his side? Most likely he was shot and he was holding his side, not reaching for a weapon. And we see that this footage looks like it was manipulated. Parts were missing. And there was no sound. And we see Barbara Davis. She posted something on Facebook. And she's saying that I'm absolutely sickened. Lavoy was shot 9 times. There will be no open casket. The FBI shot him in the face. Right after it happened, I put out a call for the serial number off the 9mm the FBI claims he had in his pocket. The Pacific Patriots Network just sent me an email. The 9mm came back stolen 2 years ago. The FBI planted the gun on him, serial number 541-19868. And we can see they were using the video to show they were in the right. They killed the man that knew a lot about the Constitution. They were going to a peaceful talk. He did not draw a weapon on the police. Their truck was ran off the road into a snowbank, and there was no threat whatsoever. And after the video, we see there were 2 sets of footprints going up to the door. So we can see something was out of whack and things weren't exactly what they seem. And we know this. And we see that they're using this incident to basically promote their anti-government extremist propaganda program. And they're using this as an example of how this is going to spread across the country, and how people might blow up things, and how people should be afraid of these type of people who don't work with the government, who don't agree with the government. And we can see where this is leading. Now, Facebook decided they're going to block messages that are encrypted by Cryptor. Cryptor is a service designed to encrypt chat messages, and they've been blocked by Facebook. And they've done this because they wanted to make sure that people who were chatting, they were basically secure. And the way it works is, you would have a plugin into Facebook, and the person that you're chatting with would get a password, you would get a password, and your communication in between would be encrypted. But it seems that Facebook doesn't want this to occur. Now, of course, they're getting their orders from the United States government and the agencies because they want an open way of listening in on what people are saying. And we see that the U.S. government central bankers continually want to spy on the people. They're very, very nervous of what the people are planning. They're nervous about people having weapons. They're nervous about people coming after the government once the system completely collapses. And this is why we see all this spying. This is why they're very worried about the people. This is why they're erecting the spikes on the fences in front of the White House, putting up buffer zones to protect themselves, increasing the guards, using these instances of people jumping the fence saying, see, we're not secure, increasing the guards in front of other government buildings. And to take this a step further, England has been negotiating a plan with the United States that would allow the UK to directly serve wiretap warrants on American communications. Now, British authorities, they're going to have access to a range of data. And they'll be able to intercept live communications, and they'll be able to archive emails, texts, and anything else they need. And with this agreement, they will allow the U.S. to access the stored data in the United Kingdom. So basically, this is a complete workaround, and they're allowing the British government to spy on the people, and the U.S. is just going to go to England to get the data right now. Now, of course, they're in negotiations right now, and Congress has to approve this. Well, they approved the Patriot Act, they approved the USA Freedom Act, and I'm sure this is going to be an act that says this is for the people act, and you know this is not what it really is. And it looks like all they're doing is continually pushing the agenda of spying on every single person. They are so nervous and afraid that they need to continually spy on everyone. Now, we know the U.S. and their allies, they've been using propaganda to convince everyone that North Korea's developing a ballistic missile, they're going to be testing a ballistic missile, and North Korea notified the UN that they're going to be sending up a communications satellite, and they'll be launching a rocket, and they've given the coordinates, they've given the time and dates, but we know that Japan, the U.S., the allies, they're going to use this to push their agenda. And their agenda is to provoke North Korea and to get everyone, the rest of the world, to think that North Korea is absolutely crazy. Now, in some respects, they are, but a lot of this is being created by the U.S. and the propaganda machine. But don't worry, they're going to be monitoring the launch, and they're going to be tracking the rocket as it enters space and orbit. Now, of course, Japan says if it poses a threat, they're going to shoot it down, which most likely they're not going to do, because that will then start World War III. And it will look like Japan started it, unless they can really prove that this communications satellite was heading towards them and there was a nuclear weapon on board. And we can see that at this point, they're really not going to take that next step. Ukraine right now is teetering on chaos. We're seeing a lot of the government employees there. They're resigning. Poroshenko is pushing and getting ready for war. And we see as time goes on, the shelling in Donetsk and Lugansk area is increasing, and we're going to be coming out of the winter months. And as we head into spring like we did last year, we see that Ukraine is preparing and getting ready to make an offensive. And we'll have to watch that very carefully because we see that they're getting ready for something big there. We see that out in Libya, United States and NATO, they are continually pushing Libya to form a unity government. They keep making and using the propaganda that there's the Islamic State in Libya and it is growing. They're saying there's about 6,000 fighters right now, and we need to do something. We see that Italy is getting prepared to send about 6,000 strong into Libya, not counting the forces from the other Arab states, from the United States, from the UK. And we see they're getting ready, prepared to make a huge push. Now, they're staying very, very quiet about this. They're testing the waters by putting out that the Islamic State is in Libya, that the U.S. has to do something, and they want to see people's reactions. They want to see, okay, we're letting you know we're going to be doing this. Is this okay? Well, it doesn't really matter. They're going to do it anyhow. They've been preparing for this, but it seems that they're leaking this out a little bit at a time, and eventually what they're going to do is they're going to go right into Libya to take Tripoli, to get rid of the elected government in Tripoli. Now, Turkey, they are continually provoking Russia. They refuse to conform with the Flight Safety Memorandum. We know that the United States and Russia signed this with NATO, and Turkey is part of the coalition forces, and Russia is saying that they are not following the safety memorandum whatsoever, and they're continually violating it. But again, nobody cares. Remember, the United States, the coalition forces, they don't follow the rule of law. They want everyone else to follow the law, but they are not following any law at this time. Russia proposed to the United States to form an advisory center in Jordan for coordinating actions in Syria. The United States and Western allies rejected it flat out. Boom, we do not want to do this whatsoever. Now, why would they reject everything that Russia proposes to fight the Islamic State? Well, we know why. It's the proxy army of the United States government central bankers. Of course, they're going to reject everything that Russia brings up because they don't want their army destroyed. And of course, the U.S. is welcoming Saudi's plans to send ground troops to Syria to fight Assad, not the Islamic State. That is propaganda. So what do we have here? We have everything ready to go. We have the coalition forces ready to go into Libya. We have the coalition forces ready to go into Syria. And everything is being prepped at this time. We see that the Navy, they are staging a 2-week-long active shooter drill on different bases nationwide. So sailors and Marines from coast to coast will spend half the month engaged in response training to stop active shooters and potential terrorists in their tracks. Now, every time we see a drill, we should be worried, because a lot of times when these drills are occurring, something around the area happens. And this exercise is Solid Curtain Citadel Shield 2016 is going to run through February 12th. And they're going to test how the bases handle threats. And we've seen active shooters, which most of them are false flags, on the bases. And we're going to have to watch this situation very, very carefully. Now, we're getting word from a Wells Fargo insider, and I spoke to other people in different banks where I worked. I worked in the financial industry for quite a while. And they confirmed, yes, that they're going through some type of emergency scenario training. And what we're seeing here is, why are they having these emergency scenario trainings? They're training their staff to deal with something that might occur. So, I mean, we can think about what is happening here, and we can come to the conclusion that they're training for an economic collapse, maybe a bank run, maybe a bank holiday. I mean, during the emergency, they're going to close the doors to the banks and only allow 3 people inside the bank at a time. They're not going to have a lot of cash on hand in the bank, which they don't anyway, because of safety issues. And we can see at this point that something is being readied. Now, we know the banks shut down in Cyprus. We know the banks shut down in Greece. We realize, because of the bail-in documents, which were created back in 2012, not just by the US, not by the UK, but the Eurozone, Canada, New Zealand, and other places, that they are prepared to go inside the bank and take the people's money. And of course, what they're going to do is give you worthless bank stock. Well, for a bank that's insolvent and a bank that's collapsing, why would you want the bank stock? You wouldn't. But the scenario is exactly what is happening right now. It's closing the doors, preparing for a bank holiday. And a bank holiday is when they shut down the bank, usually on a Friday, and they keep it closed for a certain period of time to stop people coming in and taking out their cash. Out in Greece, people were taking out their cash ahead of time because they saw what happened in Cyprus. And we realize from everything that's going on in the country and how the collapse is forming right now, that they are getting ready to push this event. And this event that I'm talking about is to cover up the economic collapse. It's not to stop it. It's not to halt it. It's to cover up the entire thing and blame the entire thing on another group or country. Because the U.S. government, central bankers don't want to be blamed for this. And if you noticed, they are pushing so hard, and I know this is an election year. I know that they want to make this really look good for the Democrats, and I don't really care, Republican, Democrat, as long as we have someone in government that works for the people, that supports the country, and not foreign governments, central banks, or corporations, I'm fine with that. But we don't see that today. But we know it's an election year, and they're going to make it look really good that the economy's improving. The other agenda right now is to show the world that everything is fine here in the United States, that the economy is improving. It has improved to the point where unemployment is down to 4.9%. The stock market, because you might have little drops here and there, but is still very, very high. And they're showing that everything's fine here, because they need this illusion to convince everyone that when this economy crashes, it's not because of them. It's because of the Islamic State. It's because of the cyber attacks that are hitting our financial institutions. This is why we are seeing the bank drills. This is why they created the bail-in documents, to prepare for this moment. And the moment is going to come in a split second. It's not going to be drawn out over days. It's just going to happen, just like we saw in 2008. Right up to that point, before everything came crumbling down, they were letting us know that everything was fine. Yeah, we see sluggish here. The economy's slowing a little bit, but it's improving. Everything's contained. We're not forecasting any type of recession. They're doing the same thing once again, but this time it's much, much worse. This time, The people have lost their wealth. The Fed has bought the toxic real estate. Their books have expanded to $4 trillion. Banks are completely insolvent. The entire economy right now has been collapsing since 2008. All we see is bubbles, and you know when these bubbles pop, no matter how high they put it, it's twice as hard coming down. And this is what they are preparing for. And everyone needs to be prepared for this hard landing, because it is going to be hard. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.